At a tense family dinner, I sat at the head of the table with a freshly broken arm. I couldn't grip a fork, let alone serve myself. The guests remained awkwardly silent. My daughter calmly remarked, "My husband taught her a lesson." Darius, my son-in-law, boasted loudly about keeping order in the house. The old woman they thought they could control had other plans. I simply smiled. 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. When Darius opened it, he met the man who would remind everyone who truly held power: friends. Before we dive into this story, if it touches your heart, please subscribe, like, and drop in the comments which city or state you're listening from. It always lifts my spirit to know we're all connected. The rich aroma of roasted chicken with herbs and roasted vegetables filled the dining room like a warm embrace. To anyone else, it promised comfort and celebration. For me, Dr. Alara Vance, it was a painful reminder of my current helplessness. I stared at my empty bone-white china plate with its delicate silver rimma set my late husband and I had chosen decades ago. My right arm rested heavily in a thick plaster cast. Every pulse sent sharp throbs from my fractured radius up to my shoulder. I had heard the sickening crack when Darius shoved me hard against the doorframe the night before. Darius's loud voice cut through the clinking silverware. "This chicken is incredible. Marisha really outdid herself tonight." He sat in my husband's old high-backed chair, unbuttoned suit jacket straining over his belly. Grease shone on his chin as he devoured massive portions. Around the table sat his guests' 2 colleagues and a woman from the city office. They ate in uneasy silence, sensing the heavy tension. They saw me, a dignified older black woman with graying hair and a cast, sitting without food, yet none dared speak up. Darius was their superior. His signature controlled their careers, but the heavy platter in the center remained out of reach. Asking for help would mean begging. One young guest quietly suggested, "Maybe we should serve Dr. Vance something." Darius cut him off sharply. "She's on a special diet today. Therapeutic fasting clears the mind, right, Mama?" His eyes, glassy from cognac, held only cruel triumph. Marisha, my daughter, sat beside him in a muted beige dress. She avoided my gaze while slicing vegetables into tiny pieces. "She's getting older. Coordination isn't what it used to be," she added softly. Darius laughed, recounting how I supposedly tripped while trying to reach the attic. The guests forced polite smiles. I had spent 30 years as a surgeon, operating on brains and saving lives. I knew the anatomy of fear and memory intimately. Yet I still searched my own memories for the moment I lost my daughter to this man's shadow. But the real turning point wasn't the broken arm or the hunger, it was the precise plan I had set in motion exactly 24 hours earlier. What happened when that doorbell rang would change everything. My stomach cramped with hunger. I hadn't eaten since Darius demanded the deed to the condo and threw me into the wall. The antique grandfather clock my father sticked steadily in the corner, tick-tock, tick-tock. Darius raised his glass. "To discipline and order in the home. The one who pays calls the shots. Those living on charity stay quiet." He downed the drink and stabbed another piece of food. Something deep inside me shifted from resentment to icy calm. The same calm I once felt before picking up a scalpel. I straightened my back despite the pain. "Darius," I said quietly but clearly, "you are sitting in my husband's chair. And by my calculations, you have exactly 1 minute left to enjoy it." He turned slowly, smirking. "Excuse me. You threatening me, old lady? Gonna hit me with that cast?" He laughed loudly, mocking me to the guests. I didn't reply. I simply watched the second hand on the clock. He didn't know that the silence in this apartment wasn't surrender. It was a countdown, exactly 24 hours earlier. The apartment had smelled of fear and stale liquor instead of roasted chicken. Darius paced like a trapped animal, demanding money for his gambling debts. I stood firm. This is my home. It will not be sold. That was when the man inside him vanished. He lunged, shoving me with all his weight. I flew backward. My right arm instinctively rose to protect my head. Crack! The sound of my radius breaking echoed in my ears. Nausea surged as I slid down the wall. Marisha saw everything. She didn't run to help. Instead, she whispered, "Mama, why did you provoke him? Just sign the papers." Darius yanked the phone cords and locked me in the bedroom, but I was still Dr. Elora Vance. Panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. Fighting waves of pain, I crawled to my old emergency kit. Inside, painkillers, a syringe, and a burner phone I kept charged. After the injection, I dialed a number I hadn't used in 20 years. A deep, commanding voice answered on the third ring. "Speak. It's Ilara. I need help." The governor didn't waste words. What he arranged next would arrive precisely at 8 o'clock, and Darius had no idea what was coming through that door. The grandfather clock struck 8. The doorbell rang long, insistent, and commanding. Darius grinned smugly. "That's the notary I called. Time to sign those papers, Mama. Family business." Marisha sighed in relief. Darius stumbled to the foyer. "Come in, come in." His voice dripped with fake warmth. Then it cut off abruptly. The dining room fell silent. Heavy combat boots thudded on the hardwood. Darius's voice turned thin and pathetic. "Governor Hale." "Sir." Two massive men in tactical gear entered first, positioning themselves like silent guardians. Then Governor Marcus Hale walked in. His silver hair and steel eyes commanded the room. In his hands he carried a modest bouquet of blue wildflowers. Darius tried to shake hands and babble greetings, but the governor walked straight past him as if he were invisible. His gaze locked on me. He crossed the room and knelt beside my chair, ignoring everyone else. He placed the flowers next to my empty plate and gently covered my good hand with his. "Dr. Ilara," he said softly, his baritone filling the space. His eyes moved from my empty plate to the cast on my arm. His jaw tightened. Rage simmered beneath his calm exterior. He rose, moved to the head of the table, and waited. Darius scrambled out of the chair so quickly he nearly tripped. The governor sat naturally, as if he belonged there. A guard silently replaced the dirty utensils with clean ones. Governor Hale reached for the platter and began cutting the chicken into small, neat pieces with precise movements, the hands of a man who once shook with injury, but now moved with authority. He speared a piece and brought the fork to my lips. "Please, Dr. Ilarat." There was deep respect in his gesture, not pity. I accepted the food. Warmth and strength returned with every bite. Only after easing my immediate hunger did the governor speak again. One simple question that made the entire room freeze. Who is responsible for the lesson Dr. Vance received? The lies that followed would seal Darius's fate. The governor's question hung in the air like a surgeon's blade. Who is responsible for what happened to Dr. Vance? Darius twitched. He forced a nervous laugh. "Governor Hale, come on. It's just family talk. A little domestic misunderstanding. Mama's getting older, coordination slips sometimes." He tapped his temple. "She tried to get something from a high shelf last night, lost her balance, and fell. We were terrified for her." Marisha nodded quickly, her voice shaky. "Yes. She refused the ambulance at first. We take such good care of her, Governor. She's like royalty in this house." I swallowed the last bite the governor had offered me. Strength was returning to my mind now that food had reached my system. The lies were so blatant, yet delivered with the confidence of people who had grown used to getting away with everything. "Darius," I said calmly, my voice carrying the authority of decades in the operating room. "There are no stairs in this condo. It's all one level. The thresholds were removed years ago for easy movement. The silence that followed was absolute." Darius's smug expression melted away. He had forgotten the very layout of the home he was so desperate to sell. Governor Hale's eyes turned cold as he stared at my son-in-law. The governor repeated quietly, "Lying during an official inquiry is serious. but lying about the woman who saved my life 30 years ago, that is something else entirely. He turned to me. Marisha, bring your mother's bag. My daughter hesitated, but the governor's tone left no room for refusal. She fetched the worn leather satchel. From the inner pocket, the governor pulled a large yellow envelope and removed the X-ray film. He held it up to the chandelier light. The jagged defensive fracture in my radius was unmistakable. This wasn't just proof of a fall. It was undeniable evidence of a deliberate attack. When the governor revealed the true nature of the injury and ordered an immediate audit, Darius's carefully built world began to crumble in real time. The aides cleared the table silently. Fresh air flowed through the open windows, carrying away the stench of fear and greed. Governor Marcus Hale and I sat facing each other, 2 cups of strong amber tea between us. Double quotes Dr. Alara, is there anything you need? A nurse, hospital suite, protection, name it. I looked at the lone slice of red velvet cake. Just slide the fork closer, please. With my left hand, the one I rarely used for such tasks, I picked up the fork. It felt awkward but determined. I cut a piece and brought it to my mouth. The sweet frosting and rich cake tasted like victory. I am not helpless, I told him. I was simply waiting for the right moment to remove the infection. Sometimes family itself becomes the infection that must be cut away. In the final moments of this night, I reflected on the hard choices that preserved my dignity and freedom. The apartment felt lighter after the security team left with Darius. The heavy oak door had slammed shut with finality, cutting off his desperate screams. Marisha stood frozen in the dining room doorway, a small gym bag clutched in her hands. Her once perfect makeup was streaked with tears and mascara, turning her face into a mask of shock and regret. Governor Hale spoke with calm authority. You cannot stay here tonight, Marisha. My driver will take you to a hotel. Investigators will need statements from you regarding your knowledge of the basement activities. Marisha looked at me, her eyes pleading. Mama, I didn't know everything. He made me go along with it. I was scared. I met her gaze steadily. The woman before me was my daughter, yet she had chosen comfort and silence while I lay on the floor with a broken arm. You stood over me that night. You told me to shut up so the neighbors wouldn't hear. You chose him over me. She opened her mouth to protest, but found no words. The truth had stripped away her excuses. She turned and walked out without another word. The soft click of the door marked the end of years of silent endurance. Governor Hale's aides worked efficiently, clearing the remnants of the ruined dinner. Fresh night air swept through the open windows, replacing the stale smell of cognac and fear with hope. We were finally alone. Me and the man whose life I had saved 3 decades ago. He sat across from me, silver hair catching the chandelier light, his presence still commanding yet gentle. 2 steaming cups of strong tea with lemon slices sat between us. Double quotes, Dr. Ilara, he said softly. You don't have to carry this burden alone anymore. Whatever you need, medical care, security, financial support, I will arrange it. I smiled for the first time that evening, a genuine smile of quiet triumph, but before accepting any help, there was one small act of defiance I needed to complete. One final proof that the woman who once held a scalpel with steady hands was far from helpless. In the center of the now clean table sat the single untouched slice of red velvet cake. Its deep crimson layers and thick cream cheese frosting looked almost too perfect amid the chaos of the evening. A silver dessert fork rested beside it. Just slide the plate closer, Marcus, I requested. The governor looked puzzled, but did as I asked. I studied my right arm, still encased in plaster, a painful reminder of Darius's violence. Then I focused on my left hand. My fingers trembled slightly from age and exhaustion, but I willed them to obey. I picked up the fork. It felt foreign in my non-dominant hand, yet I gripped it firmly. Slowly, deliberately, I cut a piece of the cake and lifted it to my mouth. The sweet, rich flavor exploded on my tongues, the taste of independence. I am not helpless, I told Governor Hale, my voice steady. Darius thought he could break me. He believed I couldn't even feed myself. But I was never the weak one here. I was waiting for the right moment to excise the rot from my life. He watched me with deep respect, the same look a former patient gives their surgeon years later. You taught me that courage isn't about never falling. It's about how you rise and who you protect. We sat in comfortable silence, sipping tea as my father's grandfather clock continued its steady rhythm. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Each second marked the beginning of true freedom. As the night deepened, I reflected on the difficult question many families face. When does love for a child end and the right to protect your own dignity begin? My choice had been painful, but necessary. The governor stayed longer than expected. We talked about old times, the war injury that brought him to my operating table, the long recovery, and the promise he made never to forget the hands that saved him. His success had not changed the core of the man I once knew. Outside, the city lights twinkled like distant stars. Inside, the apartment felt reborn. No more tension. No more walking on eggshells around Darius's moods or Marisha's quiet complicity. Sometimes, I said, you have to amputate infected tissue to save the body, even if that tissue is family. Darius and Marisha became parasites, feeding on my patience and my home. I waited years for the right assistant to help me cut them out. Governor Hale nodded solemnly. You will never face such threats again. I've already arranged for enhanced security and a review of your residency rights to make them ironclad. I felt incredibly light, as if years of invisible weight had been lifted. The pain in my arm was still there, but it was now the pain of healing rather than humiliation. Yet the story doesn't end with revenge. It ends with a powerful reminder about strength, boundaries, and the true meaning of family. What would you have done in my place? My dear listeners, that was the story of Dr. Alara Vance, a woman who endured silently for years until the moment came to reclaim her power. It's a tale of patience, strategy, and the moment when dignity outweighs blood ties. Some of you may feel the punishment was too harsh. After all, Marisha was her daughter. Others will say they got exactly what they deserved. The question lingers. Where does parental duty end and self-preservation begin? I chose life. I chose peace. And I proved that no one, not even family, has the right to break you. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe, hit like, and tell me in the comments which city or state you're listening from. Your support keeps these stories alive. On the screen, you'll find 2 more powerful life stories waiting for you. There's so much more on this channel. Don't miss the next one. Asterisk. As the tea cooled slightly in our cups, Governor Hale and I revisited fragments of the past. 30 years ago, he had arrived at the hospital as a young sergeant with severe head trauma from shrapnel. The operating room had been my domain. I worked with steady hands while others panicked. You didn't just save my life that day, Dr. Alara, he said quietly. You taught me what real strength looks like: calm under pressure, precision when everything is falling apart. I nodded, remembering the long nights of recovery where we talked about life, duty, and resilience. Those conversations forged a bond deeper than blood. He had risen through the ranks, eventually becoming the governor. But he never forgot the surgeon who pulled him back from the edge. In my quiet dining room, that old promise manifested in the most powerful way. His presence had dismantled the toxic control Darius had tried to establish. The condo was safe again, my lifetime home, protected by the deed I had signed years earlier. The grandfather clock continued, its faithful ticking, tick-tock. Each second felt like a new beginning. The pain in my casted arm had settled into a manageable ache. A reminder rather than a defeat. Asterisk. But the emotional weight of severing ties with my own daughter lingered. In the quiet hours that followed, I confronted the hardest question of all. Was cutting Marisha out of my life truly the only path forward. Marisha had not always been this way. I recalled her as a bright-eyed child, running through the same rooms, laughing as I bandaged her scraped knees. She had watched me save lives and dreamed of following in my footsteps. Somewhere along the way, Darius entered her life like a slow poison. His charm masked ambition and greed. She chose his lifestyle over the values I had instilled that night. When I lay on the floor with a broken arm, her words still echoed, the concern for scandal, not for my suffering. She had prioritized appearances and comfort. Family duty has limits. When someone threatens your peace, your safety, and your very dignity, love must sometimes step aside for self-respect. Governor Hale listened without judgment. "You gave them every chance," he said. "Patience is not weakness. But endless tolerance becomes self-destruction," I agreed. The operation was complete. The infected part had been removed. Healing could now begin. With the immediate crisis over, the governor made arrangements that would secure my future. But the real victory came in a small, personal act. The aides had left the red velvet cake slice untouched, almost as if they understood its significance. With my left hand, I took another deliberate bite. The creamy frosting and moist layers tasted sweeter than any victory speech. It wasn't just dessert, it was proof. Proof that I could still nourish myself, still stand tall in my own home. Darius had mocked my caste, claiming I couldn't even hold a fork. He believed hunger and humiliation would break my spirit. Instead, they sharpened my resolve. Governor Hale watched with quiet admiration. "You are the strongest person I know, Dr. Alara, not because you never fall, but because you always find a way to rise." We spoke of practical matters, arranging proper medical follow-up for my arm, ensuring the audit exposed all of Darius's corruption, and reinforcing the legal protections around my residency. His support was unwavering as the city outside grew quieter. I shared one final reflection on the blurred lines between family loyalty and personal survival. Is it right to distance yourself from your own child when they enable abuse? Many will debate this. Some listeners may feel compassion for Marisha, seeing her as another victim of Darius. Others will understand that silent complicity makes one complicit. I chose the path that preserved my life and sanity. Parents are not obligated to destroy themselves for ungrateful children. The governor nodded. True love sometimes requires hard boundaries. The apartment felt transformed: clean air, peaceful silence, and the comforting tick of the old clock. No more dread. No more tiptoeing around fragile egos. I was home again, truly home. This story carries lessons that reach far beyond one family dinner. Lessons about patience, strategy, and the courage to act when the time is right. Dr. Alara Vance's experience shows that strength is not loud. It is calculated, patient, and precise like a surgeon's incision. She endured years of subtle erosion to her dignity until the breaking point arrived. When it did, she was ready. With one strategic phone call made in pain and darkness, she summoned justice that arrived exactly on time. Her story reminds us that no one should accept being diminished in their own home, whether by a spouse or financial must be confronted. Before we close, remember that real change often begins with a single calm decision in the face of chaos. Friends, if Ilara's journey moved you, reflect on your own boundaries. Have you tolerated too much for the sake of family? Where do you draw the line? Share your thoughts in the comments. The night ended with quiet strength. Governor Hale left with assurances of continued protection. I finished the cake, set down the fork, and looked out at the glowing city. The rot had been cut away, healing had begun. This brings us to the end of Dr. Alara Vance's powerful story, but the channel has many more tales of resilience, justice, and quiet triumph waiting for you. My dear listeners, that concludes the story of Dr. Alara Vance, testament to endurance, strategic patience, and the courage to reclaim one's life. She proved that even after decades of service and sacrifice, no one has the right to rob you of your dignity or security. Some will question whether expelling her daughter was too severe. Others will celebrate the restoration of justice. Ultimately, each of us must decide where family obligation ends and the right to a peaceful existence begins. Elara chose herself, and in doing so, she chose life. If this story resonated deeply, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and comment below with your city or state. Knowing you're out there means everything. You can also send a super thanks to support more stories like this. There's so much more waiting on the channel. Thank you for listening. Until the next story, stay strong, protect your peace, and never underestimate a quiet woman who once held a scalpel. With love and respect. The end.